And we're live. Welcome to another edition of GridironStuds Live Weekly. I think this is my third show. And again, just an impromptu. I jump on here and just start talking. Sometimes it's cool just to do that. So we're doing it again this week. And again, I think it's the third or fourth week. I haven't been keeping track. That's how off the cuff I'm just doing this thing. But nevertheless, for the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk a little football, talk a little college football recruiting, and talk a little bit of defensive back play, as I get questions all the time on my Instagram account, All Eyes DB Camp. It's a good follow. It's a good follow. Should head over there. I got a good question today. I posted a play up and I ask you guys what coverage to run. I swear there are guys that go on there every week and say the same coverage. They'll say cover two, or they'll say I've got a guy that says engage 8 every week. And if you said engage 8, you need to delete your account. Don't come to me. Listen, half those guys that respond on that thing are saying Madden coverages. I think it's hilarious. But nevertheless, some guys get on me for not giving an answer to the question that I asked. Hey, I asked you guys the question on that what coverage post on All Eyes DB Camp on Instagram. That's you guys' time to shine. That's not time for me to jump up there and start answering questions. There's plenty of time for that. I've got plenty of posts and members area posts where I will do all the talking. What's up, Jalen? Thanks for checking in to the GridironStuds Live Weekly show. But yeah, that's you guys' time to shine. I love seeing the responses there. I get some pretty good responses, and then I get some guys trying to be jokers there. But yes, I get a good amount of questions in my All Eyes DB Camp DMs over there at on Instagram. And then also I get a good amount of recruiting questions as well on @GridironStuds on Instagram. If you're not following that as well and you're a high school prospect or a friend of a high school or a college football prospect, or you're the parent of a college football prospect, definitely need to be following me on Instagram @GridironStuds. I've got 2 Instagram accounts, All Eyes DB Camp, @GridironStuds. You need to follow both of those. A lot of good information @GridironStuds on college football recruiting. I know it's a very lonely process for parents, especially if you're a single parent trying to do this thing. It can be overwhelming. I'm fully aware of the fact that it can be overwhelming. Let me fix my mic. We're getting fancy here. See that? I'm mic'd up, Donnie Brasco. Anyway, if there's any problems with the sound, you guys can just let me know there in the chat. But nevertheless, just trying to improve the sound quality here and make this thing semi-professional for you. But nevertheless, like I was saying, it can be an overwhelming process. And I do on this channel too. If you're new to watching this show, before you leave this live broadcast, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to my channel, because I post quite a bit of information and videos on college football recruiting. Do the same thing on a monthly basis with defensive back play. So if you're a defensive back, you could check in here and get some pretty good information on the basics. And of course, I have my members area at alleyeysdbcamp.com, where we really ramp it up, and you guys have a chance to get the big time details on playing defensive back and take your game to the next level. So what else? Oh, if you are a college football prospect and you don't have a profile on the GridironStuds app, shame on you. All right. But nevertheless, I'm going to post the link to the GridironStuds app in the description, and you can go there and download it right now, create a profile, and keep it updated. And I've got colleges and college football fans checking in there all the time to find prospects from all over the country. So, and I have a recruit watch list, and guys on the recruit watch list have been getting a good amount of attention. So that's something there too. And again, I will drop that down I'll drop the link to that in the description. In the world of sports, what are we talking about? Everyone's talking about the XFL. I've got to be honest. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Is it impressed? I liked it. It's week 1. Let's see how they look in week 3, 4, and 5. But there was a better debut for the XFL than it was for the AAC, I believe it was. I've forgotten the name of that league that collapsed and they just stopped paying guys. So, it was a better run, obviously. Vince McMahon had done this before with the XFL. If you're old enough to remember that, if you were the age of consciousness, the guy where they allowed players to put whatever they wanted on the back of their jersey, and one of the most famous guys put "He Hate Me" on the back there. I don't know if you guys remember that. For you guys who don't, it was a funny league. It had their quirks. I don't even remember why it folded, but there were some funny things about the XFL. It was at least entertaining. They didn't do a coin toss. They would have the two fastest players run from their goal line to the 50-yard line. Whoever got the ball first, their team would get the ball. I thought that was pretty interesting. They've done away with that in the second coming of the XFL. A more professional league. I think this thing has some staying power. If they can get 3-4 seasons out of this, the way I look at it is you've got guys that fall short. They get cut from NFL training camps. It's another chance for them to get looks. Perhaps they were overlooked, and it's just a chance for them to play more ball, be seen, and also get paid. I think these guys can make $50,000, $70,000. That's not bad cheese. If anyone's been out there yet going and looking for a job, even as a college graduate, there's slim pickings out there. So if you can go out and do something that you love, which is playing football, and you have an opportunity to make $50,000 to $70,000. And again, don't quote me on that, but I think that's the figure I saw for what these guys are making, and they will get paid. The backer on this thing, Vince McMahon, has plenty of money. He's the CEO of the WWE, so he has deep pockets. And you know what? From what I saw looking at the games on network television this weekend, they were well attended, and I believe the ratings were great as well. I think the ratings in terms of sports beat everything else that was out there. So the Lakers played, Duke and North Carolina played in college basketball, and I think the XFL games beat all of those games in terms of ratings. So I did like the kickoffs. I don't know if that has any staying power, but basically if you didn't watch this weekend, I believe they put the kickoff return team on the 30-yard line or so, 30, 35-yard line. Then they had the kickoff team some 5 yards away, and the kickoff team could not start running until the return man caught the football. I don't know if that would work in the NFL, because as I discussed with a couple of guys I was training today, and we all agreed, if you get a Tyreek Hill or someone with any kind of speed or agility and they break through that first line, it's over. Those guys are gone. So I don't know how that's going to work. And that's one of the things we're going to have to see. One of the things I did like was the transparency that they had in terms of the reviews. There were a number of plays that had to be reviewed in the games that I watched, and I thought it was a good thing to have the referees mic'd up and listening to them going through the process, speaking with the replay official and talking about it. That's the kind of transparency that fans want to see. So if you watch some XFL games, drop a comment. Tell me how you felt about the XFL. Is it something you're going to continue to watch? Is it a league that you think is going to last? And if so, how long do you think it's going to last? So I'd be interested in hearing how you guys feel about that. This is the slowest time of year in terms of sports. So we've just finished with the Super Bowl. So we all have that football lag right now. It's a chance for you to go out and experience some other things in life. If you're married, go hit your honey-do list. Knock a lot of those things out, home projects, all that kind of stuff. But this is that slow time of the year. So I think there isn't going to be a whole lot to talk about because February is that slow time leading up to March Madness in college basketball, which I could launch into a discussion about college basketball. I think the one and done thing has ruined college basketball. There are no more college basketball stars. There aren't those guys that you've been watching for 2 or 3 years that you can really gravitate to. And so the only thing that we're really left with in college basketball is that March Madness and just trying to see if Cinderella can get there. Outside of that, there isn't much going on with college basketball. Maybe that's just me. NBA, it's the regular season. You got guys doing load management, just trying to get through on any given night. James Harden might drop 60 points or he and Russell Westbrook might get into it, and that's really the storyline right there. How much winning can the Lakers do? Are they really better than the Clippers? Those are the storylines. Not a whole much to go on there. All right, so I'm getting a football question here. I'm going to try and address that one towards the end. Next Football Legends. If I don't during the live broadcast, I'll jump on it when the broadcast is over, so you can come back and check on that. But nevertheless, again, it's a slow time during the year in terms of sports. If you're a baseball fan, they're getting cranked back up again. And the biggest story going into this season in terms of baseball is how will the Houston Astros be treated? I don't even know if that's a question. I think we know how they're going to be treated. I am just really, really looking forward to the time when they enter Yankee Stadium for the first time, because you know the folks in the Bronx and all Yankee fans, of which I am a huge Yankee fan. Yankees over basically everything. And you're talking to a football player here, but they feel cheated. You know, they feel cheated out of perhaps 2 trips to the World Series and a chance to continue adding on to their huge legacy as the best baseball organization ever. And they got beat by banging trash cans. And another story that came out today about Carlos Beltran. But I don't want to bore you guys with baseball talk because I don't think I have a whole bunch of baseball fans listening here. It's all about that football. So talking about college football recruiting, I did have a chance to go and attend the Miami Rivals 3-Stripe Camp. And for those of you who are not very familiar with that, the Rivals 3-Stripe Camp is a camp put together by Rivals and sponsored by Adidas, who's been big in high school sports over the last few years, really moving into that market. But they sponsored a tour that's done around the country by Rivals and their writers and some coaches that they've hired. And they go to several cities. I'm not sure how many, maybe 16. I'm not entirely sure how many, and perhaps I could look that up. But they go around from city to city and they try to find. They try to find the best prospects in each area. They go regionally and they try to go. So like they were in Miami this past weekend. They're in Orlando next weekend. Then they're in Atlanta. I believe they go to Houston. They go to New Jersey. They're in Los Angeles and a couple of other cities. Maybe it's not 16, but it's basically they go there. They have a combine the week before. Let me tell you about this combine. They invited folks to the combine this weekend, open invitation. Over 1,000 kids came to that combine on Saturday. And what they do is they bring as many kids as they can in on Saturday. They have them do combine type testing. They 40-yard dash, shuttle, vertical jump, all the stuff you would see at the NFL combine, basically. And, the camp on Sunday is an invite thing. You can't just show up. It's an invite thing. So if you weren't invited, you can show up to the combine on the Saturday before. And if you perform, you ball out, you put up good numbers, they'll invite a guy if you do well there. So over 1,000 guys, and they selected 15. And it just had me really drive home the point. If you guys understand that it's very, very college football recruiting is extremely competitive. That's just in one city that 1,000 guys showed up, and only 15 were able to now get invited to the camp that there was on Sunday. So imagine a college football coach. Imagine these top Power 5 schools, and they can recruit and sit in all these states, all these cities, and that's thousands upon thousands of kids that they're evaluating, which is why I try to explain to guys, you cannot take anything for granted in your preparation and in trying to get those scholarships. There are a lot of sad guys. We had National Signing Day last week. A lot of sad guys that didn't have a school to commit to and to sign to on signing day. Now, there are a number of reasons why these things may have happened. But a lot of guys fail to understand the level of competition, just how many people are going for what it is that they want. And when you skimp on a workout, or you skimp on film study, or you skimp on any number of things that you need to do to be the best football player that you can be and be the best prospect that you can be, there's another guy in another state somewhere that's not skimping. He's up and he's doing the things that he needs to do. So that was just an ability to drive that thing home. I was impressed with the talent at the Rivals 3-Stripe Camp. It's very competitive down here in South Florida. It is a hotbed for talent. So there have been a couple of years where I've gone out there and looked around and said, we don't have a good crop this year, or at least we didn't have a good turnout at a particular rivals camp, or even the opening, the Nike opening does the same thing. But there was a pretty good group out there, and I think it's going to be even more competitive. DBs looked great. A couple of great looking DBs that were out there. Tyler Gaskin from American Heritage Del Rey. Tyson Russell was a guy that caught my eye from St. Thomas. And there are a number of guys from Western, from Deerfield Beach, all over the place. And I think there's going to be a good. We were lacking in defensive backs in 2020 down here in South Florida. Y'all agree with me on that? I don't think we had a great crop in 2020. 2021 looks like it's going to be pretty good. And 2022 looks even better than that. So a couple of nice wide receivers and some quarterbacks too as well. So the talent was good all across the board. I was impressed at the Rivals camp, and now they're going to move on to Orlando. I will say this also. Listen, the number one thing guys need to do when they go to these camps, whether it's Rivals or the opening, certainly if you're going to a college football camp where the coaches are right there looking at you, you got to compete. All right? You got to go there and you got to compete and you got to give an effort. You got to go fight for those reps. You've got some guys that'll go there and stand back and when it's time to do one-on-ones, and they'll take 1 or 2 reps and stand back and let guys cut in front of them. Man, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Why are you at this camp if you're not trying to soak up and get all the reps that you can? There are going to be some dogs there that are going to cut in a line. They're going to take 100 reps, and they're just going to stand out. The more times they go, the more times and the more chances they have at being evaluated by the guys that are there. So that's pretty much the way that it goes there. You've got to go and compete. To answer your question, Jalen, Jalen asked me, what are the benefits of paying for my DB membership? I don't know if you've watched any of my videos here on YouTube. Those cover just the basics. So if you're brand new at playing the defensive back position, or if you're out there and you haven't had much coaching, then you're going to get nailed down with the basics. Those are just going to be basic things that you need to know, defensive back. When it comes to the members area, I get more detail there. So I've got probably over 100 videos in there right now talking about technique, drills that are done, some great drills that we do. I go through and explain them and explain how they help you. Then there's also coverages that we talk about in there, because a lot of guys don't understand how to play in their coverages, and that's some of the most important things that go on. Everyone thinks it's all about man-to-man. What happens when your coach calls cover 3 or coach calls cover 2, or things of that nature? So we go over coverages there as well. I will take things that I see in pro and college football games, and I'll break them down for you and show you what went wrong or what went right. And it just really in general, plus you get daily DB tips there as well. So it's just a wealth of information. It's more detailed, and it's just going to ramp your game up to the next level. So, and then there's also stuff in there about the basics as well. My whole Master of the Basics series is in there as well, parts 1, 2, and 3. Then my press drill series is in there as well. And then a host of, like I said, over 100 videos in there of stuff that you can take and apply to your practices. I've got coaches in there. I've got high school players. I've got college football players in there as well. It's a ton of information in there for you. So let me see if I can answer. What's a 11 personnel offense and a 2 and 2 is a 2 tight end and 2 running backs? I believe that's what you're asking me. 11 personnel is 1 running back, 1 tight end. If you're asking me what 22 personnel is, that's 2 running backs and 2 tight ends. 32 personnel, 3 running backs, 2 tight ends. So basically, when you're talking about personnel, the first number are the number of running backs. The second number are the number of tight ends. So if we're talking about a spread formation, and that's 10 personnel, that's 1 running back, and of course there's no tight ends in that, there's 4 wide receivers. I believe that's the question that you're asking me. If I'm not clear on that, next Football Legends, go ahead and ask the question again if you need to clarify it up. But I mean, that's a good question for everyone that's here. if you've heard personnel, if you're listening to a football game and the commentator is talking about 10 personnel or 11 or 21 personnel, which is the more standard personnel, at least back in the day, not anymore. But 21 personnel was 2 running backs and a tight end. So that's a fullback, that's a running back, and then there's a tight end. So I hope that answered your question, Next Football Legends. He said time is money. He's on a schedule. All right. Nevertheless, getting back to things here. What are some of the questions that I get in terms of college football recruiting? Everybody wants to know how to get more exposure. That's a big thing that I get asked about. And I'm going to answer it like this. Before you talk about getting exposure, you've got to make sure that you're a good player. Sometimes I'll get that question from a guy. When I go watch their highlight video, you're not ready to be evaluated by college football coaches. Plain and simple. So you wouldn't want a ton of exposure if at this point in time, you don't present yourself as a college football player. You know, you're 140, 145 pounds. You're thin as a rail. Maybe you're young in your game. You don't have much in terms of highlights. Your first 4 or 5 clips on your game, on your highlight, are you running down on a kickoff or something in special teams, or you just making a routine tackle, or you're blocking as a wide receiver. You don't want exposure yet. What you should be focused on is becoming the best player possible. So do all the stuff in the off season, get in the weight room, do all the running, get yourself bigger, faster, stronger, study your film, learn your team's offensive or defensive playbook, become the best possible football player that you can be. And then you want to start thinking about exposure. And the only way I could really set it up and present it to you is like this. If you open up a store and you want people to come, you better have some product in that store. You can't open up a store you can't open a grocery store with 1 can of beans on the shelf and you want people to come in. What's going to happen when people show up? They're going to say your store sucks. They're going to tell other people that your store sucks. And then you're going to be fighting an uphill battle to get more customers down the road. Those customers are probably done with you. And now you don't have much of anything. So in terms of college football recruiting, I want you to have that thought in your head. Fill up your store. Have some product. Have product that people want to buy. And when we're talking about college football recruiting, that's being big, fast, strong, smart, quick, aggressive. You want to work on all those things, and you got to have some self-awareness and make sure that the best thing you can do is really go on Rivals and go on 247 and go look through the list of those guys there. All right. Look at the heights and weights of those guys. Go pop on their highlight video. Look at how they play. Do you play like that? Are you close to that? Do you potentially see yourself like that? If you do, then yeah, let's talk about exposure. And the ways to get exposure. First, you need to be on the GridironStuds app. All right. And again, I'm going to have a link to that down in the description below. The second thing is you want to see if you can get out to these camps. And if you weren't invited to, like I said, a Rivals camp, or you weren't invited to the opening or something of that nature, go to the combine. If you present as someone that's physically well put together and you're athletic, perhaps you will seize an opportunity to make it. They might invite you from the combine over to the camp. And if you're able to do that, go there, compete. Don't expect anything. Don't expect colleges to come beating your door down after you've gone and you've participated in the camp. Don't expect to be the MVP, even if you go there and do well, okay? Because I'm going to tell you a lot about what happens. This particular camp this weekend had maybe 225, 230 guys there. It's very difficult for those guys to evaluate all of those 225, 230 players. I'm just being honest with you. I've been at a camp. I've worked a camp before, and just trying to evaluate a group of defensive backs or wide receivers, 2 groups that I've worked with, can be very difficult. You can get 30 to 40 guys and you really don't have long enough. And, you don't have a chance to really get to know the guys. So it's tough. There may be a kid at a camp that does something really, really well, and I forget the kid's number. I'm just being honest with you. That happens. So a lot of times what happens is guys that were already known are the guys that get the MVP in there, and it's not really a big deal. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. What you want to do there is go there, compete, and you go out and make an impression, and you may catch the eye of a recruiter or someone else that was in attendance. And then you just start building up. If you're a younger guy, you just start building up momentum, and you're able to get things going in your recruiting, so that's the way that it works. 11 is, 11 personnel, you can do, it's kind of basic. You can do more out of that. 2x2 is run heavy. Okay. That's 2 running backs. That's 2 tight ends. Not a whole lot of guys you want to throw the football to. You're really trying to pound guys when you go 22 personnel. 11 personnel is a little more balanced. You can run and pass out of that. 10 personnel is a lot of passing out of that. All right. But yes, getting back to what I was talking about, you really want to make sure you have built yourself up into a prospect, or you're at least on your way when you start looking for exposure. And again, get out to these camps. Now, another thing that you do is you want to go to the college camps in the summertime. If a school has come by and they've invited you to the camp, try to get to that camp. And I always break it down to guys like this. Maybe you try and make it to 5 camps in the summertime, 3 camps to schools that invited you, and then 2 camps to schools that are on your dream list of schools, your top 5 or your top 10 schools that you would like to get an offer from. But you do have to go to a couple of those camps that have invited you. You want to get a bird in the hand. So if it's an FCS school or it's a Division II school and that's all that you've got, go to that. Secure a scholarship first. I've seen guys cast aside Division IIs or FCS schools because they think they're a Power 5 player. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But the schools that are interested in you, you need to be interested back. Okay? You need to communicate with anyone that's trying to offer you a scholarship or that's inviting you out to a camp. They show interest in you, you better show interest back, because there have been plenty of guys who were not very self-aware, or for whatever reason, they were being under-recruited, and they cast aside. I saw plenty of that this year, and guys that I'm trying to help right now, they've cast aside the smaller schools. They've cast aside the MAC conference because they feel like ACC and the SEC and Big 12 should be going after them, or the Big 10 should be involved in recruiting them. And then that never happens. And then January comes next year and they're trying to get back in touch with those MAC schools, and the MAC schools have moved on. They've already developed a relationship with other guys. So you definitely want to try and hit the camps of schools that have invited you. Maybe you don't make it to all of them, but pick, if you've been fortunate enough to get invited to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 camps, try to hit 3 of those. Try to show up there and show them that you're interested. And then, 1 or 2 others are from schools that you have on some type of dream list. What's a good height and weight for a DB? I 5'10", anywhere between 5'10" and 6'2". When you start drifting under 5'10", schools start to get a little nervous about you. All right. If you're going to be under 5'10" as a defensive back, truth of the matter is you're going to have to be really, really good at some other things. And namely, you're going to need to be really fast. All right. Let's be honest. You're going to have to be fast if you're 5'9" or 5'8". You're going to have some good leaping ability. Obviously, disparity in height versus other wide receivers that are 6 foot plus, it's going to be a problem. So you better be able to jump. You better be super athletic. You better be very smart. And being aggressive, you would also help you. So you're going to have to be great at all those other things. 5'10", they get kind of iffy on. Once you start hitting 5'11", they're okay. Everyone wants 6 foot plus DBs. They think they grow on trees. They don't. But everyone's searching for those. So, they love the 6-footers, but you're okay at 5'11". You're all right at 5'10". Once you're down to 5'9" and 5'8", then you're going to have to check off. You're going to have to super check off some other boxes. And that's just really the way that it works. All right. How do I feel about walk-ons? Listen, if you've got a scholarship in hand, I'm telling you this, if you've got a scholarship in hand and the school is not a complete disaster, man, go get that free education, because that walk-on life is not for everyone. Okay. Sometimes you feel like you're just not even a part of the team. And for a lot of guys, especially young guys, their ego cannot take that. So there've been a number of guys that have turned down scholarships to just go walk on at a Power 5 school, or, a big Division I school, and they've just not liked the experience. And again, it also depends on what exactly you want. If playing time's not a big thing and you just want to be a part of an experience, you want to be at one of these schools, it's going to, run out in front of 85, 90,000 people, perhaps have a chance to go to the college football playoffs, or you just want to be in the SEC or something like that, and playing time's not a big deal, then okay, maybe you'll enjoy the whole walk-on experience. But if you like playing, if you like being a part of a team, if you like being thought of in a certain way, and maybe you were the man at your high school, that walk-on life's going to be very, very difficult for you. So that's just the way that it is, So you can walk on and become a starter. It's rare. Let's just be honest. It is rare. And so, yes, everyone has those ambitions. You're not going to be the only walk on there thinking that same thing. Could be 15, 20 of y'all. It's, you're lucky if 2 guys out of that 20 become starters and actually get scholarships. So, and you're going to have to wade through a lot of things to get to that point. So again, it just boils down to what it is that you want. All right. That's the end of this 30-minute segment. Perhaps we'll get these things longer. I appreciate all you guys that checked in and it gave me some feedback, dropped some comments, and asked some questions. Next Football Legends. Hope we're able to answer your questions. Quite the aggressive guy you are. So, but I appreciate all you guys for checking in. Again, before you leave, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video. There's some good information and tidbits dropped here for folks. So maybe someone else that you care about, or that's in the college football recruiting game, or plays defensive back, or like sports, would like to hear about this. So like it, share it, and subscribe. I appreciate that. Be back next week. Oh, also, I'm working on some other things, working on a DB show that I'm going to be having here on YouTube. So it'll be, the full show will be about defensive back play, working on doing that. I'm also going to have a college football recruiting show. So a show completely dedicated to college football recruiting, so where we answer some questions, talk about some recruiting things, and then also talk about top prospects and things of that nature. So it's good for fans. It's going to be good for prospects and things like that. And then another common show that I'm adding. Well, I'm not going to get too much into that, but off topic. We're going to have some off topic issues we're going to talk about here on the show. So those are a couple of shows that are going to be coming up in the near future here. So you're going to want to stay in touch with this channel. Again, subscribe. I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone watching and joining me here on Gridiron Studs Live Weekly. Until next week, be good.